Hi there. Did a video recently that was focused on explaining how a organisation had approached us, and they were explaining that one of their clients was really wanting interpreters to be able to communicate to the same technical proficiency as the professional themselves. And it's basically producing some really interesting feedback from you professional interpreters. Now, my background, as I've mentioned in some other videos, is recruitment. And one of the interesting comments or points that somebody would make on their CV would be something along the lines of able to communicate up to director level. And basically what that is implying is that the individual has got sufficient communication skills to adapt to senior people in the business. And that might be they've got an awareness of business mechanics, or can talk about financial data, or they can just hold their own, i.e. they're confident enough to speak with people at board level. What I used to find interesting was that people would never put able to communicate down to shop floor. People always claimed or wanted to highlight that they could communicate upwards, but never communicate downwards. And this is really, really interesting. And just using that as a real life example, there are significant similarities in this demonstration of competency that somebody would put on a CV when it comes to in interpreting. Surely the success of a communication transaction where an interpreter is involved is that the language is simplified. The language is simplified, and that it's non-technical. And my question to professionals in the NHS, in legal settings, in other technical settings is, if you are so proficient, or you want efficiency, let's just say, if you want efficiency, is it the interpreter's job to scale up their ability, or have you got to scale down to become more simple? For those of you that interpret in court and legal language, I was fortunate or unfortunate to be brought up in a household where my father was a lawyer. I worked in his office straight out of university. In my business working life, have seen contracts, legal documentation, had conversation with people in law. And there are some really, really complex terms, phrases, clauses, unique language to the legal sector. And it's confusing enough as a native English speaker trying to decipher or understand some of these pretty complex, historic type phrases used. And therefore, for those who are proficient at interpreting or have worked in legal settings before as an interpreter, even though you may know a good portion of the terms or be familiar with them, the legal setting is so vast that it would be impossible for somebody to understand all of the jargon, Latin, technical legal speak, and then be able to interpret into their language just like that. It's not going to happen. The same in the medical profession. There are so many ailments, so many departments, so many potential health issues that you can have, that unless you're medically trained, it's going to be really, really difficult to skill up and learn all those phrases in English and then be able to convert them into a second language. So is it not the responsibility of the professional to be able to dumb down their language, to make it easy for the interpreter to successfully navigate that communication transaction? Of course it is. Is it going to happen though? Probably not at the moment. There needs to be as much lobbying against professionals, or not against professionals, lobbying towards professionals to be able to convince them of the benefits of scaling down their language. Unfortunately, rightly or wrongly, the legal profession traditionally is populated with individuals of a certain class. Admittedly, as we move more into a modern world, the legal sector is becoming more accessible to people from parts of society that wouldn't necessarily have worked in the legal sector, 30 years ago. Same with maybe the medical profession as well, the top end of the medical profession. And if you're brought up in a certain culture or environment where a complex communication style is natural, then it can be hard to move out of that behavior. It's just what you're used to. But we know as an interpreting community, and I mean the community that I am part of as a supplier to it, I'm not an interpreter, but as an interpreting community, we have to adapt and skill ourselves to be able to meet the demands of the context. Certainly right now, professionals aren't going to start speaking simpler tomorrow or the day after or this year, next year. It's a slow turnaround process. And even if it was mandated, the reality that somebody could just change their behavior just like that to be able to dumb down their communication, it's a skill in itself. It requires some thinking. Maybe like simultaneous interpreting, being able to adapt to provide that type of skill is pretty similar to having to communicate in a more simpler style or fashion. So just to finish this video, the simplification of language used in the professional setting would most definitely improve the efficiency of the interpreting transaction. One solution, it might not be favourable for everybody at the moment, is for interpreters to have confidence in the fact that they too are a professional in that setting, and as a requirement of going into that setting would be to brief the professional, to basically say, I'm here to provide the interpreting service. For it to be as successful as it can be, please communicate in a basic format wherever you can. And if you do use technical words, if you are able to use the technical phrase but provide a layman's description afterwards to support that, that will increase the efficiency of this communication transaction. And again, I'm just suggesting that as a possibility. If you've got the confidence to do that, I think that you'd gain the respect of the professional. They know that you're not a medical person. Admittedly, some people out there who you deal with may enjoy speaking in a complex way because they know that they are the professional in that instance, and they may enjoy the fact that they've got this ability to talk technical. And that occurs in many facts of life. But, a suggestion would be to ask for simplification before the transaction starts rather than within the transaction. Maybe try that out. I don't know what your thoughts are. Maybe you might have other suggestions on how to manage the professional in these situations so that you can do your job as effective as you can. Okay. So pop your comments in below. Let me know what you think, and I'll respond when I can.